Hey everyone. So I know we talked about it this past Saturday, but I really wanted to kind of dive deeper into differentiation in social studies and leave you with something that you could come back to, basically. So here it is, differentiation in social studies, hopefully in less than 10 minutes. But you know I talk a lot. All right, so the definition of differentiation, and I'm taking this directly from Carol Ann Tomlinson. Carol Ann Tomlinson is the queen of differentiation. If you ever are sitting there going, I don't know what to do here, how will I ever look up anything about differentiation? You Google Carol Ann Tomlinson. There's another book that you're going to be using at another point in your degree called Classroom Teaching Skills, put out by Cooper. And it has the chapter on differentiation by Carol Ann Tomlinson. So she'll be coming up again and again and again. Here is the definition. Differentiation means tailoring instruction to meet individual needs. Whether teachers differentiate content, process, products, or the learning environment, the use of ongoing assessment and flexible grouping makes this a successful approach to instruction. It is definitely putting the student first. It's very student-led. Carol Ann Tomlinson. Further reading that you're going to want to do includes, there's a great article by Derek Anderson and Tanya Cook called Committed to Differentiation and Engagement. It's actually really a story about teachers attempting to do more inquiry-based teaching and more student-led teaching than just lecture. But it really does give, in giant chunks, great examples of how to differentiate. And we're going to talk about what that means. Levy, also meeting the needs of all students through differentiated instruction. That's just a really good basic overview. But the ones that are like, again, chef's kiss, keep them, love them forever, are Carol Ann Tomlinson's How to Differentiate Instruction in Academically Diverse Classrooms and Rick Wormely's Differentiation from Planning to Practice Grades 6 through 12. Rick Wormely is available. That book is available in our library. So is the Derek Anderson and Tanya Cook, the Levy. Those are available as ebooks and as articles through our library. So find them, keep them, love them. They're your best friends. Important reminders at all times. Flexibility is key. This should go without saying for all teaching, right? Like flexibility is just key, and that's really going to help you as you differentiate, because you're going to think something's going to work and you're going to have to modify on the fly, and that's okay. And you'll get better at it as the time goes by. And again, kind of as with all instruction, you start with your essential question. I put question, but it's really questions, right? So those are those questions, those objectives that you're really working from, those higher level thinking of where you want the students to kind of get their brains to by the end of that unit or lesson. So as Carol Ann Tomlinson said, there's different approaches to differentiation. We're going to go over content, process, and product as opposed to learning environment. That's just something you can figure out as you go and you like. For content differentiation, this is actually something that is not really it's applicable to social studies, but kind of not to the way we teach it, because differentiation of content is what you plan to teach. However, most of our students are coming to our classes as they are survey classes and they have very little knowledge. Even though social studies has been an ongoing component of education since like kindergarten or first grade, and we all know that based on the standards, they're supposed to be introduced to different topics, social studies time has decreased dramatically in the last 15 years. So a lot of our students are coming to our classrooms with just not a great knowledge of social studies. So content differentiation is really more like, say, in math, when you want to make sure that the kids understand what came before so they can understand what comes next. But for most of us, we're going to find out that our kids are kind of like blank slates in a lot of areas for social studies, and we're going to teach the standards and move on from there. However, if you do have any questions, you can always use formative assessments to check pre-knowledge, and you just pivot as necessary, because it could turn out during a discussion that your children are not familiar with something that you just assumed they would be familiar with, and you're just going to cover it in that moment. This is where it really starts fitting more for us. Learning process differentiation. So differentiation of the learning process, and I'm taking these definitions directly from Tomlinson because, again, she's the woman. She's the GOAT. Differentiation of the learning process involves providing students with multiple learning activities and peer groupings, taking into account individual abilities, learning styles, and interests. So basically how you teach, and you just mix it all up so that kids who learn in different ways or learn better in certain ways are going to be presented with material in a way that they can take it in and learn from it. And I just gave you a giant list of different examples of how to differentiate the learning process. And these are taken from both, from Wormley, from Thompson, from Levy, and from the Anderson and Cook article. So simulations, computer research, think, pair, share, primary and secondary document analysis, 1-minute essays, video clips, graphic organizers, learning logs, journals, blogs, wikis, learning centers, interest centers, learning contracts, raft assignments, discussion circles, role-playing, cooperative controversy, in which students argue both sides of an issue. I would just call that debate, but choice boards, jigsaw, Think, Pair, Share made it twice because that's how big Think, Pair, Share is. Model making, labs, tiered assignments, and mixed ability grouping. You do not need to do all of these in one lesson. You don't even need to do all of these in one unit. These are from your little bag of teacher skills that you will pull out over the year. But you do want to make sure that your lessons have a differentiation component. Maybe they have 1 or 2 of these aspects that are put onto your more traditional or standard lesson plan that you're working on. And you will learn over time which one you're better at implementing and which ones work for better students. And again, there's that whole flexibility thing, because you might say like, this is going to be great, and then for whatever reason, that is not the thing that pings the stuff for your students. So this is not to say you best do all of these things, I better see all of these things. This is to say, have a lot of stuff that you can start pulling out of a bag over the course of a year to see what works best for you to implement and for your students to learn. Product differentiation. So product differentiation provides students with various options to demonstrate what they've learned. A lot of times in history, we think, oh, they're going to take a multiple choice test. And if we think of our end of year tests that the students have to take at state levels or various other things, it's a multiple choice test. If we think of what the College Board gives them, then it's going to be multiple choice, but also with some writing, right? SAT history, multiple choice. All of these things, we're like, okay, so that's it. Multiple choice is not authentic. So that's another thing. Authentic assessment, that's a term you're going to learn a lot. It's not authentic. It's not what we're doing for the rest of our life. Having to write a short memo, that's going to be something students have to do. So examples for product differentiation is basically trying to get away from how we were tested. So examples: conduct a debate, create a memorial, a photo essay, a wiki, design a website. I once had students design a website together. It was a Google site and they each had different components. A solution to a world problem, a virtual museum exhibit, make something, create a lesson plan. Ooh, kids like that. AP kids especially like to create a lesson plan. They get into that. Write a new law, a letter to an editor. You want to give struggling learners assignments in smaller chunks, give timelines, help by locating sources, provide templates or organizers. This, for example, and this is actually more about process than product, but for example, in a class I observed this week, students were sent to do research. It was an honors class, so they were just told, here, the internet is your oyster, do some research on this topic and fill it out. If you are dealing with struggling learners, then you probably want to be like, here are 3 websites that are really good for you to look at. That gives them examples of what are good, credible websites, but also kind of limits where they can go, keeps them focused, and you know that their information is going to be credible. You can also provide templates or organizers. For advanced learners, provide advances of multiple materials. Give them suggestions on something they can read or watch that's really going to build on that. Let the advanced learner develop their own criteria. Let's say you've covered something and you've moved on to something else, but you have some free time. Well, let them say where they want to go. If anybody is familiar with the unschooling model of homeschool, but this is where kids kind of choose their own paths, and you can do that to some extent in your public school classroom. And let them study comparatively across time and society. Ask higher level thinking questions that force them to remember something maybe you've talked about earlier in the year, make connections between empires or people or class or gender or just something across the year that really forces them to make those connections. For people who taught AP history quite a bit ago now, but this was the synthesis point, right? Why is this like that? And I really want to take in this because this is product differentiation. And a lot of people think that if we move away from multiple choice tests, we have lost rigor. So I want to really use this quote by Rick Wormeli. Let me be clear. Differentiation is not about requiring less or more work from students in varying degrees of readiness, right? It's not, oh, struggling learners are going to have an easy thing to do and advanced learners will have a hard thing to do. That is not what differentiation means. We don't ask advanced students to do 2 book reports while struggling students do 1. Instead, we change the nature of its work, not the quantity. And you'll notice, especially because with students, motivation and interest is a big driver. So if you give things, as we talked about in class, like a choice board, and students can choose the product that they're going to hand in or something that they're going to look at, that is a massive motivator, and that really helps them move on, both for struggling and advanced learners. I want to remind you all that in our course den, if you click on content, we have, go down to general education resources. You have a link to high and low prep student-led activities. If you click on it, it will take you here. Actually, sorry, I clicked because I had moved forward because I was looking at something. Lesson 3, high and low prep strategies. You will see that they will give you a lot of them. They also teach you what is differentiated instruction, content, process, and product, learning menus. So use this in addition. But remember, flexibility is key, and you are not just doing this to include everything, but you are trying to figure out what is going to help your students learn best and what you are going to be most adept at implementing to help your students learn best.